The alien ship appeared in the sky like a silent shadow, just before sunrise. It didn't make any noise as it hovered above the thick green jungle. Inside the ship were 6 Zarnak scientists. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes large and black, and their hands had long fingers perfect for handling tools. They were not soldiers, they were researchers. Their goal was simple: to study Earth's wildlife and collect samples for their homeworld. The leader of the group, Commander Threx, stood near the window and looked down at the forest below. "Primitive planet," he said with a bored voice. "Let's get this over with quickly." They had come with high-tech equipment, scanners, to track animals, cages that used force fields, and tiny drones that could follow any creature through the trees. The jungle they chose was far from human cities. It looked wild and untouched, perfect for collecting rare animal life. The ship landed gently on a flat open patch of ground. Thick trees surrounded them like walls. The moment they stepped outside, they could feel the heat and the strange smell of plants. Insects buzzed in the air, but none came close. The Zarnak wore thin protective suits that kept bugs away and filtered the air. They set up their base quickly. Machines came to life. Drones flew off to scan the area. Force field cages floated beside them, ready to hold whatever they caught. The crew moved, with confidence. After all, they had done this before and on many other planets. Earth, they thought, would be no different. At first, everything went smoothly. One of the drones returned with footage of a strange striped animal, a tiger. The Zarnak admired its size and teeth. "Very dangerous," one of them said with a smile. "We must catch one." Within an hour, they had trapped a small monkey, a snake, and even a large bird. They tagged them, took samples, and let them go. It was going so well that Threx ordered the team to move deeper into the jungle. "There must be more," he said. "This planet has thousands of species." But as they walked deeper, something felt wrong. The jungle grew quiet. The buzzing of insects stopped. No birds sang. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. One of the researchers, Veln, paused and looked around. "Where are the animals?" he asked. "There were sounds before. Now there's nothing." Threx waved his hand. "Animals hide, that's normal. Keep scanning." Still, the silence made them nervous. Their scanners picked up movement, but it was strange. Something big was moving just beyond their sight, always staying behind the trees. The drones followed, but never got a clear image. Just flashes. A blur here, a shadow there. Then came the growl. It was low and deep, like thunder rolling through the ground. Every Zarnak froze. Their translator couldn't identify the sound. "Is it a tiger?" Veln asked. "No," said another. "Too loud. Too heavy." They turned, weapons ready, but the jungle looked the same: trees, vines, and shadows. The growl came again, closer this time. One of the drones dropped from the sky, its signal lost. Threx frowned. "Return to camp," he ordered. "We'll regroup and study this later." They moved fast, but the jungle seemed to change around them. Trees looked the same, paths disappeared. Their map didn't help. It was as if the forest didn't want them to leave. After an hour, they finally saw the lights of their base again. Relief washed over them. They were safe. For now. But as they entered camp, they noticed something strange. One of the cages was open, the force field broken. Inside, the monkey they had caught was missing. Claw marks were on the floor, but not from the monkey. They checked the footage. Static. The cameras had gone black for 3 minutes. When the video came back, the cage was empty. Nothing was shown. Threx didn't like this. "Secure the area," he said. "No more walking into the jungle until we understand what's going on." Night fell quickly. The jungle outside the lights looked darker than space. They set motion sensors around the camp. The scientists tried to rest, but no one slept well. In the darkness, something moved between the trees. It watched the Zarnak. It studied them the way they had studied animals. It didn't fear them. It waited. They had come to Earth to hunt, but they didn't know. The jungle was watching. and something in it didn't like being disturbed. They thought they were safe in their ship, in their suits, with their tools and weapons. But Earth has secrets, and this jungle was one of them. The night was cold, but the jungle seemed alive with silent eyes watching from the shadows. Inside the camp, the Zarnak scientists tried to rest, but sleep didn't come easy. Every small sound made them jump, leaves cracking, twigs snapping, distant growls. The jungle was no longer just a place to study. It had become a trap. When the morning light broke through the trees, the crew gathered for their usual check. That's when they noticed something terrifying. One of their own was missing. Veln, the youngest scientist, was gone. His bed was untouched, his equipment still at the camp. There was no sign of a struggle, no warning. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Commander Threx ordered a search immediately. The other four spread out, calling Veln's name, scanning the nearby trees with their devices, but there was no signal from his tracker. The jungle was silent again, refusing to give any answer. Their scanners showed no heat or movement where Veln might be. Panic started to grow. They all knew the dangers of Earth's animals, but none expected to become the prey themselves. Threx's voice was tense. "We are researchers, not hunters. We must stay calm. Veln is probably lost. We find him, then we leave." But as they searched, strange signs appeared. Huge claw marks, far bigger than any animal they knew on Earth, were found near the edge of their camp. Deep scratches on tree trunks, broken branches, and footprints larger than a human's. The marks were fresh. One of the crew, Aaron, studied them carefully. "These are not animals," he said softly. "Something big. Something intelligent." The others didn't want to believe it. They had left their home to learn, not to fight. Yet their technology started failing. Communication devices dropped signals. Drones sent into the trees went dark, without explanation. The jungle was swallowing their tools. That night, as they sat around the campfire, the silence was broken by a low growl, louder than before. This time it came from very close, from inside the jungle, near their perimeter. Everyone stood, weapons ready, hearts pounding. The darkness seemed to move and shift. Suddenly, a drone zoomed back to the camp, its camera feed shaky and blurry. The screen showed a dark, fast-moving shape and not an animal, but something stronger and faster. The shape vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only static. Fear took hold. Threx knew they were no longer in control. "We are not just observers," he said grimly. "We have become the hunted." By the next morning, 2 more crew members disappeared without a trace. No calls for help, no signs of a fight, just empty spaces where they once stood. The remaining 2 scientists and Threx gathered again. Their hope was fading. They realized the jungle had a mind of its own, and it was fighting back. The jungle was not just home to animals. Something ancient lived in its shadows, watching every move. The Earth was not just a planet to study. It was a place to fear. The hunters had become the prey. The jungle grew darker with each passing hour, as if the trees themselves were closing in on the surviving Zarnak. Commander Threx and the 2 remaining scientists, Aaron and Kayla, moved cautiously through the dense forest. Their scanners beeped and flickered, but the signals were weak and strange, as if something was jamming their technology. They knew they were being watched, but every time they tried to spot the watcher, it vanished like smoke. At night, the jungle was alive with sounds, but not like the normal calls of animals. There were low growls, heavy footsteps, and soft whispers carried by the wind. The Zarnak kept their weapons ready, but even their most powerful energy rifles seemed powerless in this strange place. One evening, as they returned to their damaged camp, they found something terrifying. One of their force field cages had been torn apart, not from the outside but from the inside. The cage was empty. Whatever had been inside had broken free with incredible strength. They checked the footage from their surveillance cameras. For several minutes, the screen showed only static. When the picture returned, the cage was empty. No animals, no signs of struggle, just silence. But the force field was shattered, as if hit by a powerful force. Aaron stared at the screen in disbelief. Nothing on the cameras but something strong enough to break the force field. This is no normal animal. Kayla nodded, fear growing in her eyes. It's hunting us, and it knows how to hide. That night, as they tried to sleep in the ruined camp, strange noises surrounded them. Branches cracked, heavy breaths echoed nearby, and shadows danced just beyond the firelight. Their motion sensors beeped non-stop, but whenever they looked, there was nothing there. Suddenly, a loud roar shattered the silence. It was closer than before, full of rage and power. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The three Zarnak grabbed their weapons and prepared to fight, but when they aimed their rifles, the creature was gone. Only one thing was clear. The jungle was alive and it was hunting them. The Zarnak had come to study Earth's wildlife, but now they were being hunted by something far more dangerous than any animal. Something smart, strong, and angry. They were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. The jungle seemed to close in around them, thick with shadows and unseen dangers. Commander Threx, Aaron, and Kayla knew they could no longer trust their scanners or their eyes. Every step they took felt like walking into a trap. The force field cages and high-tech gear meant nothing here. The jungle was not just a home for animals. It was a living, breathing enemy. They decided to split up, hoping to cover more ground and find their missing crew members. Threx took the left path, Aaron the right, and Kayla stayed near the camp to protect what was left. But the moment they separated, the jungle seemed to change. The sounds of footsteps followed each one, but when they turned around, nothing was there. Aaron soon found himself trapped. A net of thick vines suddenly rose from the ground, wrapping around his legs and arms. He struggled, but the vines tightened like living ropes. Panic rose as he realized the jungle was hunting him, using the plants themselves as weapons. At the same time, Threx heard screams from the distance. He ran toward the sound, but all he found was a broken tree and strange symbols carved into the bark. The marks looked like claws, but too perfect, too deliberate. It was a warning. Kayla, watching from the camp, felt eyes on her. Something moved just beyond the light of her torch. Then, a heavy step cracked a branch, and she caught a glimpse of a large figure, taller than any animal, with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness. She fired her weapon, but the figure disappeared into the night. When the others returned, they found Aaron badly injured, tangled in vines. He whispered, "This jungle, it's alive. It's not just animals. It's something else. Something that thinks." The three survivors realized the terrifying truth. The jungle had a guardian, an ancient creature, part beast, part spirit, created to protect Earth's wild places from invaders. It was not just defending its home, it was hunting them, the alien intruders. They were trapped in a living nightmare. The hunter was not an animal. It was the jungle itself, and it wanted them gone. The three survivors huddled inside a small cave deep within the jungle, trying to catch their breath. Their bodies were bruised and tired, but their minds raced faster than ever. The walls of the cave were covered with strange carvings, pictures of creatures half man, half beast, and symbols they couldn't understand. The cave told a story, one older than any of the Zarnak had ever imagined. Kayla traced her fingers over the drawings and whispered, "This place, it shows the jungle's protector. It has been here a long time. It fights anyone who tries to harm this land." Aaron nodded weakly. "It's not just an animal. It's a guardian, made to keep Earth safe. Maybe from invaders like us." "Commander." Threx looked at them with a hard face. "We came here to study, but we didn't expect to be hunted. We need a new plan, or we won't leave this jungle alive." They decided to move carefully, following the carvings deeper into the cave. The symbols showed past travelers, others who had tried to explore Earth and never returned. The Guardian was real, and it was powerful beyond anything they could fight with their weapons. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the cave entrance. They froze. The Guardian was near. It didn't rush in. It waited, watching their fear. One of the dying crew members whispered, "It's not here to kill without reason. It protects this place, but it tests us." Threx knew their time was running out. They had to find a way to leave. But first, they had to understand what they were dealing with. The jungle's secret was no longer a mystery. It was a challenge. If they failed, Earth would never let them go. The cave felt colder now. The carvings on the walls seemed to move in the flickering light, like they were alive. Commander Threx, Kayla, and Aaron stood in silence, listening to the faint growls outside. The Guardian was still there, when watching, waiting, testing. Threx knew they couldn't run forever. "This thing," he said quietly, "it doesn't just protect the jungle, it judges us." Kayla looked at the drawings again. One image showed a group of aliens like them kneeling before the Guardian, their weapons on the ground. The next carving showed those aliens walking free, while others who had tried to fight were shown being destroyed. "We have to prove we're not a threat," she said. "We have to show respect." It was their only hope. They stepped out of the cave slowly, hands raised, weapons dropped. The jungle around them stayed silent. Then the Guardian appeared, a massive shape of shadow and muscle, glowing eyes locked on them. It didn't attack. It waited. Keela took a step forward and bowed her head. "We came to learn, not to destroy," she said aloud, voice shaking. "We were wrong to treat your world like it was ours to take." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Guardian let out a deep growl. Not angry this time, but something else. A warning. Or perhaps a test passed. It turned and melted back into the trees. The jungle slowly came back to life. "Birds," called out. The wind moved the leaves again. It felt like the forest had taken a deep breath and finally let it out. Threx looked around, still tense. "We're being allowed to leave," he said, "but not forgiven." They gathered what they could, leaving behind their cages, tools, and scanners. Everything that had harmed the jungle was left behind. Their ship, once surrounded by thick vines and roots, was now clear. The Guardian had made a path. As they entered the ship and prepared for liftoff, none of them spoke. They had survived, not because of their strength, but because they had finally shown respect. As Earth faded behind them, Threx stared out the window. "We came to study life," he said softly. "But in the end, it studied us." The ship rose slowly through the jungle's mist, its engines humming quietly. Threx, Kayla, and Aaron sat in silence, staring down at the green world they had barely escaped. None of them felt like they had won. They hadn't conquered Earth. They had been allowed to leave. As the clouds parted and the stars appeared above, Aaron spoke, his voice low. "We lost 4 good scientists. We lost our equipment. We lost control. But maybe we gained something else." Kayla nodded. "We learned Earth isn't just a planet. It's a living force, and it doesn't need our protection. It protects itself." In the ship's logs, Threx began writing the final report. "Mission incomplete," he wrote. "Crew casualties 4. Cause, unknown force, possibly guardian entity. Recommendation, Earth's wildlife is not to be approached with standard research protocols. It must be respected, not studied like a lab sample. Earth is not a zoo. It is a test." As they reached orbit, a final transmission came through, a short, strange signal from the jungle below. It wasn't Zarnak language. It wasn't Earth animal speech either. It was something in between, a voice carried on the wind, deep and ancient. "Return, and you will not be spared again." Everyone on the ship heard it. No translation needed. The message was clear. They didn't speak of Earth again, not on the flight home, not in their official reports, and not when their leaders asked about the failure. The Zarnak Empire quietly erased the Earth mission from public records, but the survivors would never forget. They had come to study the wild things of Earth. Instead, they became prey, and deep in the green shadows of the jungle, The Guardian still waits, watching the stars, waiting for the next fool who dares to land.